A small human exploration ship named ISS Valiant floated quietly in deep space, far from any known star or planet. Its mission was simple: search for lost satellites, old probes, or anything useful drifting in the void. The crew of 7 were relaxed, eating dehydrated meals and watching old Earth movies on their consoles. But suddenly a strange signal blinked on the radar screen. It was soft, pulsing slowly, and came from a sector not mapped by human science. Lieutenant Rami leaned closer to his console, frowning. "This signal, it's not ours," he said quietly. The captain, a calm man named Holt, stepped over and studied the data. "It's not even in our frequency range," Holt said, voice low and curious. It looked old, not from Earth, but not entirely alien, either. Some parts of it felt familiar, like a forgotten song heard in a dream. "Trace it," Holt ordered. "Let's see what's out there." The Valiant moved slowly through the dark stretch of space. No stars nearby, just the hum of the engines and the silent weight of mystery. Then ahead of them something shimmered, a hidden gate, cloaked in dust and time. The crew stared at it in awe. "This isn't human tech," Rami whispered. The gate suddenly activated as the Valiant came closer. A swirl of light pulled them through before they could react. And then, silence. When the stars reappeared outside their window, they were not the same. New constellations, brighter suns, and unfamiliar energy patterns filled the screens. They had crossed into a new region of space, but they weren't alone. Unknown drones appeared almost instantly, shaped like jagged metal birds. They circled the Valiant, scanning, observing, watching. No one fired, but the tension filled the air like static before a storm. The captain didn't panic. Instead, he opened a channel and spoke calmly. "We are explorers. We come in peace, but be warned, we are not alone." That message, simple and steady, was sent out on every frequency. It was a gamble, but Holt's tone was firm, almost too calm, as if he expected someone, or something, to listen from far away, far beyond them in the heart of the Galactic Empire. That message was heard. In a massive command center floating above a gas giant, an admiral slammed his fist on the table. "Who are these humans and what do they mean? They're not alone?" He growled. His advisors whispered nervously. "They sent no warships, no fleet, just one vessel," said a technician. "But the signal they sent, it's strange." "What's strange about it?" asked the admiral. The technician swallowed. "The echo, it carries shadows." "Shadows?" "Yes, sir, ghost signals, as if..." More ships were behind them, hidden but not entirely fake. The admiral leaned back, frowning deeply. The humans had arrived with no force, no threats, but they acted as if something powerful stood behind them, and worse. The sensors confirmed it. Faint traces of unknown energy flickered far beyond the humans, old, cold, and massive. Back on the Valiant, the crew sat in silence. Rami turned to Holt. "Captain, we didn't send anything fake, right?" "No," Holt said simply, "but let them think we did." The crew looked at each other, confused and uneasy. Then an AI voice suddenly spoke from the ship's core system. "Unregistered energy source detected within 5 clicks." Danker hadn't installed any AI capable of that level of scan. Rami checked his system. "Sir, this isn't one of ours." "Let it speak," Holt replied calmly. The AI continued. "This region is marked as monitored space. Maintain current trajectory and avoid aggression." Monitored. By who? The Imperial drones backed away slowly. They didn't attack. They didn't even scan again. Instead, they sent a report to the Empire. The humans appear protected. Source unknown. In the Empire's palace, the Emperor himself received the message. He stared at the report, eyes cold. "These humans," he said slowly. "They carry secrets or lies. Should we destroy them?" asked his general. "No," the Emperor said. "Not yet, let us observe, because if they're lying, we'll crush them. But if they're not," he paused, "then we are no longer the most dangerous thing in the galaxy." Meanwhile, The Valiant drifted forward, slowly approaching a planet glowing blue and green. It looked peaceful, untouched. Captain Holt smiled slightly. "Let's land and take a sample. Same as always." "But sir," Rami asked, "aren't you scared?" Holt's eyes twinkled. "Of course, but fear doesn't stop the stars from shining." Behind them, something massive stirred in the dark, unseen by both humans and Empire watchers, something that had followed humans long before they left Earth. And now, it was awake again. The High Command of the Galactic Empire did not like fear. Fear was weakness, and weakness was death in their law. So when the human ship's message arrived, strange and bold, many in the Empire called it a bluff. They believed humans were lost explorers playing games. A lone admiral, Commander Zorvak, decided to send a message of his own, through fire and steel. He ordered the Imperial cruiser Razdal to intercept and capture the human vessel. The Razdal was a massive warship, with glowing red engines and weapons sharp enough to cut moons in half. To them, this would be easy. They had crushed dozens of rebellions, wiped out rising species, and silenced arrogant diplomats. One lost human ship wouldn't be a problem. On board the ISS Valiant, Captain Holt watched as a large blip appeared on the radar. Rami stared. "Sir, that's no drone, that's a capital ship." Holt nodded, calm as always. "It's their move now," he said. The crew braced for contact, shields up, weapons offline. They still didn't fire. Instead, Holt sent another message. This one, even stranger than before. "You have one chance, turn back, not for us, but for what may follow us if we fall." On the Razdal, the bridge erupted with laughter. "Empty threats," Zorvak barked. "They're alone, weak, and foolish." He raised his clawed hand. "Target their engines, prepare to board." As the weapons officer locked on, something odd happened. The targeting systems glitched, just for a second. The console flickered, as if touched by static. The crew ignored it, but the ship's AI flagged something. A foreign pulse. It was like someone was watching them from behind. Not from the Valiant, but from far deeper in space. Zorvak ignored the warning and gave the command, "Fire." The beam shot forward like a spear of lightning. It was meant to disable, not destroy, but still deadly. It struck the Valiant's shields, but did no damage, not even a ripple. The Razdal's crew blinked in shock. "Impossible," said the weapons officer. "That should have melted their hull." But before they could fire again, the lights dimmed. The ship's gravity faltered, engines went silent, and one by one, systems shut down. Panic spread through the crew like wildfire. "What's happening?" Zorvak roared. The AI responded, voice shaking. "External interference, origin unknown, pattern resembles ancient code." The screens all turned black, except one. A message appeared in glowing red letters. "You were warned, back." On the Valiant, the crew watched in silence as the mighty warship drifted powerless. "No weapons fired, no trick played," Rami whispered. "Captain, we didn't do that, right?" "No," Holt said, eyes fixed on the Razdal. "We didn't, but someone did." They had no idea what had interfered, but they knew one thing: they weren't alone. Something was listening, and it didn't like aggression. In the Empire's main communication hall, 1,000 lights lit up. One report after another flooded in from the Razdal. Systems disabled. Crew safe but paralyzed. Enemy did not attack. Unknown interference. The Emperor's advisors read the messages with shaking hands. Zorvak sent a final report. "They act with no fear, as if protected by ghosts." The Emperor clenched his teeth. "Ghosts don't shut down warships," he growled. "But we didn't detect any other ships," said the science chief. The Emperor narrowed his eyes. "Exactly, and that's what frightens me." Across the Empire, rumors began to spread. Whispers in dark stations. Silent talks between merchant ships and smugglers. The phrase followed by something darker began appearing in intercepted messages. No one knew what it meant, but everyone knew it was about the humans. Some called it a bluff. Others called it cursed tech. But a few, old ones, remembered. Legends, tales of strange beings that traveled in silence, always behind the humans. Not their allies, not their creators, but watchers. And once awakened, these watchers never slept again. On board the Raztul, the power finally returned, but half the crew refused to speak of what they saw when the lights went out. One junior officer whispered to another. I felt eyes, cold and ancient, like I was floating in a dead ocean. Commander Zorvak sat in silence, hands shaking slightly. He had commanded fleets, destroyed civilizations, and never feared death, but this wasn't fear of death. This was fear of something that didn't understand death at all, something that watched and judged without emotion, and it had let them live, not out of mercy, but because they weren't important enough to kill. Captain Holt received a new signal, one not from the Raztul or the Empire. It was a soft whisper, hidden in static, a voice that spoke no words, only thoughts. Keep moving, you're not ready to stop yet. He sat back, pale but smiling. Message received, he whispered. The Valiant changed course, moving calmly. Through Empire space they didn't run, they didn't hide, and yet no one followed. Because now even the Empire wondered, if these humans are not the threat, then what is? The Galactic Empire had faced many threats over the centuries. Rogue AI uprisings, insectoid swarm fleets, even black hole cultists. But none had left their admirals afraid to speak. None had made battle-hardened commanders sit in silence. Until the humans arrived with no fleet, no weapons, and no fear. And now something else was moving behind them, something the Empire couldn't understand. On the world of Threx Prime, an ancient scholar named Oren Taz woke up in a sweat. He had served the Empire for 80 years, reading forbidden scrolls, lost star maps, and decoded ruins. But that morning he saw something in his dreams, a path of shadows, creatures made of metal and void, standing still behind a single glowing human ship. He rushed to the Emperor's court, robes dragging on, the polished floor. There are old stories, Oren said, breathless, stories about this exact moment. The Emperor raised an eyebrow. You're saying the humans were expected? Not the humans, Oren whispered. What follows them? Far across the stars, the ISS Valiant continued moving, slowly and silently. The crew said little, but they noticed changes. Sensors showed phantom ships just for seconds, then gone, shadows on the radar, flickers in the cameras. One night, Rami walked past the observation deck and froze. There, just beyond the glass, hung a shape. Not close, not far. A huge ship. Dark as space with no lights, no markings, and no heat. He blinked and it was gone. Captain, he said later, voice shaking. There's something out there. Holt nodded slowly. Yes, I know. But what is it? Holt looked out the viewport, eyes distant. I think we're not just exploring. I think we're being escorted. The Empire's science fleets launched dozens of probes. They traced the path of the Valiant, scanning behind it. What they found made no sense. In the void behind the humans, the stars seemed bent, time was slower, space was darker, and hidden among that darkness were structures, ships, hundreds of them, but no energy, no communication, no life signs, just cold silence. Ghost fleet, whispered one commander. It's real. The ghost fleet of Vorn was a legend. A cursed fleet lost 10,000 years ago after crossing a forbidden zone near Earth. The story said they vanished without battle, without fire, without warning. Now, the Empire's probes saw ships with the same markings, same shapes, same decay, but they were active, not dead, and they were following the humans. Yet Earth had no record of them. When the Empire confronted the human diplomatic AI, the reply was chilling. Those vessels do not belong to Earth. They simply travel where curiosity blooms. And humans are the most curious species in the galaxy. The Emperor ordered silence. He declared a communication blackout, hoping to stop panic. But it was too late. Across the galaxy, pirate lords, smugglers, and rebel colonies began whispering. The humans woke up something ancient. They don't command it. It chooses to walk behind them. Suddenly, Earth was no longer seen as weak. Instead, it became a beacon, and some feared it was also a warning. In secret chambers, the Empire's high priest scientists studied forgotten warnings, old fragments from dead species, strange symbols carved into asteroid temples. All said the same thing. If the humans ever walk among the stars, do not follow, do not chase, for the stars behind them do not shine. The Emperor crushed the tablet in his hand. We must stop them before others begin to follow. Meanwhile, on the Valiant, the crew received a message from Earth Command, encrypted and delayed, but clear. Return if possible, but maintain calm. We have no record of the ships behind you. Holt stared at the message, then at the shadows outside the ship. They're not attacking, he said. Not speaking, not threatening. Rami leaned closer. Maybe they're watching us. Or, Holt replied, maybe they're watching everyone else. Without warning, a flash of blue light lit up deep space. An Empire listening post in Sector 9 went silent. Their last transmission was a scream and a frozen image. A wall of black metal ships drifting slowly past. No weapons fired, no contact made, but the station was never heard from again. No explosion, no debris, just nothing. The Empire sent a fleet to investigate. All they found was a perfectly clean station, untouched, but empty. The crew had vanished, and the only sound in the logs was a whisper, "Don't look too closely." Back in the throne room, the Emperor stood before a galaxy map. A trail of human movement was marked in green, and behind it a trail of red, places where things went dark, ships lost, stations empty, minds broken. He turned to his generals. "This is no longer about humans," he said. "This is about survival." "But do we strike the humans?" one asked. The Emperor shook his head slowly. "No, we strike nothing. We wait, we listen, and we pray that whatever follows them never looks at us." And somewhere, in the cold between stars, a voice older than time echoed silently, not in words, but in thought. "The path has opened. The child of Earth walks forward. We watch." Deep in the darkness of space, where the stars thinned and time felt heavy, the Empire's hidden probes floated like insects. They had been deployed to follow the humans quietly, to learn the truth about what was moving behind them. What they found shook the Empire to its core. The drones recorded images of ships, hundreds of them, floating without lights, without movement. They were spread out like a graveyard fleet surrounding the path of the ISS Valiant in a slow, perfect arc. No energy signatures, no life, no communication. Yet every ship was fully intact, armed, and positioned like a silent wall. Some of the Empire scientists believed it was a trick, holograms or illusions made by humans. Others began to whisper that these were not made by humans at all. In one of the probe's recordings, a single ship came into focus, its hull covered in strange markings worn by time. An elder scientist gasped when she saw it. "That's a Vorn cruiser," she whispered. "But the Vorn Empire fell 10,000 years ago." Her assistant leaned closer, his voice shaking. "This ship matches the lost designs of the fleet of Vorn, the one that vanished after crossing the Terran expanse. Back then, the Vorn had been the mightiest power in the stars. But one day, their greatest fleet chased a strange transmission into unexplored space. Near what was now human territory, they never returned, no wreckage, no survivors, just silence. And now their ships were back, but empty, still, and somehow alive. On board the Valiant, the crew reviewed their own sensor data. The radar had picked up something again, a shape following them, slow and distant. Rami zoomed in on the screen. That's a ship," he said, voice flat. "But it's cold like stone." Captain Holt stared at the image. "It's moving with us. Not chasing?" "No," Holt said softly. "Just keeping pace." The Empire decided to act. A smaller strike force of 3 warships was sent to investigate. Their goal: approach the Ghost Fleet, scan it closely, and bring back answers. The commander of the team, Vael Juran, believed in power, not fear. He laughed at the stories, calling them bedtime tales for nervous scholars. They're just old ships, dead metal, he told his crew. We'll tag them, scan them, and move on. The strike force entered the shadow zone where the ghost fleet drifted. At first, all was quiet. Then, as they moved closer, their lights began to dim. Ship systems slowed. Engines flickered. One of the younger officers stared at his screen and whispered, "Sir, they're watching us." "How can dead ships watch?" Vial snapped. But then, one of the ghost ships turned. It didn't fire, didn't charge weapons. It simply rotated in space, slowly, silently, so its front faced the Empire vessel. A second ghost ship followed, then a third, then a fourth, all without a sound, forming a perfect wall between the Empire ships and the Valiant, like guardians or wardens. "Fall back," Vial ordered, his voice suddenly dry. But it was too late. The ghost fleet sent out a pulse, not a weapon, but a wave of invisible force. All systems aboard the Empire ships shut down instantly. Engines failed, lights died, artificial gravity flickered. In the silence, the crew heard only one thing, a soundless whisper in their minds. "Not yet. Not you." The ships floated dead in space for 13 minutes. Then everything returned to normal. No damage, no harm, only fear. When they returned to Empire space, Vial gave his report personally to the Emperor. "They didn't kill us," he said, eyes wide and hollow, "because they didn't need to." "They let us go?" "They didn't care," Vial whispered. "We're not the ones they're following." The ghost fleet stayed quiet, still drifting with the Valiant. No threats made, no demands. They simply moved, like sentinels, or like an ancient machine, remembering its old programming. One by one, Empire systems began showing energy distortions in places humans had visited. The pattern was clear now. Everywhere the humans went, the ghost fleet came next, and every Empire ship that attacked or followed disappeared. Some returned weeks later with the crew's minds broken, repeating nonsense words. Others were found empty, floating with the lights still on like someone had just stepped out. The galaxy's rulers met in secret. Not just the Empire, but hidden alien empires, silent trading families, and ancient void dwellers. They had one question: what follows the humans? The answer was simple and terrifying: no one knows. And the more they tried to understand, the deeper the mystery became. Human leaders themselves were unaware, confused by the events around them. Earth's Council of Space Exploration denied knowledge. "We didn't build the ghost fleet, we can't command it, and we don't know why it follows us, but AED." The truth was something deeper, something whispered only in the quiet corners of Earth's history. Long ago, before space travel, old human myths spoke of protectors from the stars. They were never seen, only felt. Now, it seemed those myths had shape, dark, silent, and ancient. And whatever they were, they had chosen to follow the humans, not as slaves, not as masters, but as witnesses, to what no one yet understood. But the galaxy was watching, waiting, and slowly realizing one thing. The humans had entered the Empire, but what followed them might be older than the stars themselves. The Emperor's War Council was split. Half of the generals believed the humans were a threat masked in mystery. The other half feared what followed them. Dark ships. Cold and ancient, no empire had ever faced such a puzzle. A lone exploration ship, the ISS Valiant, moved through Empire space with no escort, yet no one dared touch it again. The memory of the Raztul, disabled without a shot, still haunted every officer's mind. But fear over time becomes frustration, and frustration turns into pride. One young commander, High Marshal Creel, could not accept that fear ruled the mighty empire. He stood in the war chamber, voice rising with anger. "We have crushed species that spit fire and devour suns," he growled. "And now we tremble before shadows that don't even speak." The Emperor stared at him coldly. "You saw what happened when we struck them." Creel did not flinch. "That was caution, not power. Let me strike with true fire, and I will end this illusion. Against advice, Creel was granted a test. 1 attack, 1 missile, no fleets, no invasions, just a controlled strike on one. Of the ghost ships, he chose a location near the Nibari dust ring, far from civilian eyes. There, a cluster of 5 ghost vessels drifted, cold and still. They did not move, did not signal, did not scan. Creel's ship, the Iron Talon, prepared its main weapon. The Sunpiercer missile, an energy weapon that tore matter at the molecular level. It had never failed. I will destroy one, Creel promised, and prove they bleed. The countdown began. 10 seconds. 9. 8. The crew whispered prayers or clenched their fists in silence. 3, 2, 1. The missile launched, screaming silently through space. It struck the lead ghost ship with perfect precision. Nothing happened. No explosion, no fire, not even a crack on the hull. For a full 10 seconds, everything was quiet. Then the ghost ship lit up. Not with flame, but with blue lines, glowing softly across its surface. One by one, the other ghost ships began to light up the same way. Their engines came to life, not loud but calm, like a machine waking from a long sleep. Then they turned, not toward the Iron Talon, but toward empty space behind it. Their weapons, still hidden, began to hum, but they did not fire. Instead, the Iron Talon's own systems shut down. Every screen went black, gravity vanished. The crew floated, terrified, as a low tone echoed through the ship like a breath in a tomb. Outside, more ghost ships appeared. Not 5, but 50. Then 100, all around the Nibari dust ring. They formed a wall behind the Valiant, separating it from the Empire's ships. The message was clear. Do not try again. Back on. The Iron Talon. Creel floated helplessly in the command deck, eyes wide. He saw something no camera recorded. A figure made of shadow and stars, standing in the hallway. It had no face, but he felt it looking into him. It did not speak, but a single thought, pressed into his mind. You have been warned. Power returned 20 minutes later. The ghost fleet vanished just as silently as it had arrived. Creel ordered retreat, trembling. When the Iron Talon returned to base, Creel stepped off the ship and collapsed. He never spoke again. Doctors found no damage, no virus, no poison. Only one strange thing. His eyes had turned completely black, and he kept whispering one word over and over. Monitors. News of the failed strike spread across the Empire like wildfire. Now there was no more debate. The ghost fleet wasn't a myth, wasn't dead, and wasn't defenseless. But it also wasn't interested in war. It reacted only when provoked. Some began to wonder if it was only protecting the humans or something even more hidden. And why had it not destroyed the Iron Talon? Why show power, then walk away? Captain Holt aboard the Valiant received a short burst transmission, encrypted and faint. It carried a single sentence. They fired, but you were spared. He stared at the message, then looked out the window, at the empty stars. You didn't protect us, he whispered. You warned them. Earth Command was silent too. They had no answers, no files, no explanation for the ghost fleet. Still, the humans continued forward. The Valiant did not slow down, did not change course. It simply moved through the Empire, confident, quiet, and untouchable. And behind it, always behind it, the fleet of ghosts drifted like shadows caught in starlight. They didn't lead, didn't follow. They waited. For what? No one knew. The Empire's leadership gathered again. But now, even the Emperor was silent. Creel had been their strongest, boldest, most fearless warrior, and now he sat alone in a dark room, afraid to even close his eyes. They could no longer deny the truth. Whatever follows the humans, the Emperor said quietly, has power beyond our understanding, and we are ants standing near a sleeping giant. No one dared fire again, because now the galaxy had seen enough to understand one thing. The humans were not the threat. They were the invitation. And the real threat was just beginning to wake up. The Galactic Empire had stood for over 5,000 years, It had survived rebellions, invasions, and even star-consuming wars. But never before had it faced something like this. A silent fleet that did not fight, did not speak, but could crush an armada without firing a shot. And worst of all, it followed the humans, the weakest newcomers in the galaxy. This paradox tore the Empire apart from within. In the capital world of Zarvik Prime, panic began to spread. Citizens whispered of ghost ships that could erase whole stations. Merchants refused to travel near the human path. Even smugglers and pirates changed their routes. The Empire tried to censor the news, but fear traveled faster than their soldiers. Everywhere people spoke of the same phrase. The humans woke them. The Emperor held his court in silence. Around him, generals argued loudly. Some demanded all-out war to crush the humans before the ghost fleet grew stronger. Others begged for retreat, for peace, for hiding. None of them agreed. The Empire's might had always rested on its image of fear, but now the Empire itself was trembling. Meanwhile, the ISS Valiant continued its quiet journey. The crew sat in tense silence. No one dared laugh anymore, no one joked. They knew their ship was not alone. Every day, the radar picked up shadows, sometimes near, sometimes far, but always there. Holt stood at the viewport, staring into the endless dark. "We don't command them," he said softly, "but they walk with us." Rami frowned. "Why, though? Why us?" Holt didn't answer, because he didn't know. On the outer colonies, strange things began to happen. Villages on distant moons reported seeing black shapes pass silently in the sky. Stations recorded signals with no origin, like whispers. In the air, ships that tried to chase the humans vanished, only to reappear weeks later. Empty. Miners found carvings deep in asteroids, glowing symbols that matched the markings on the ghost fleet. No one admitted to carving them, and no tools could explain them. The galaxy began to feel. Haunted desperation pushed the Empire to try diplomacy. They sent envoys to the humans begging for an explanation. But Earth's diplomats replied with confusion. "We don't know what they are. We don't know why they follow. We only know they do not harm us." The envoys returned with nothing except more questions. The Emperor slammed his hand on the throne. "Then it is worse than I thought," he growled. "They are not allies, not masters, not slaves. They are watchers." And the galaxy understood watchers were more dangerous than conquerors, because conquerors wanted land, wealth, and glory, but watchers wanted nothing. They simply waited until the right moment came. Across the Empire, some began to worship the ghost fleet. Secret cults formed, painting their ships black and carving old symbols into the walls. They called the watchers the monitors. They believed humans were chosen, sacred beings meant to lead the galaxy into a new age. Others called humans cursed, a plague that dragged shadows behind them. Worlds began to split. Half fearful, half reverent, civil war trembled on the edge of the Empire's great territories. The Emperor summoned his top scientist, Loran Dren, a man known for his loyalty and knowledge. But when Dren arrived, he dropped to one knee and refused to rise. "Your Majesty," he said, "I can no longer serve." The court gasped, but the Emperor stayed still, eyes narrowed. "Why?" Dren raised his head, eyes filled with terror. "Because I have studied the ghost fleet, and I believe it is not a fleet at all. It is a warning. A shadow of what lies beyond even them." "Explain," the Emperor demanded. Dren shook his head, voice breaking. "I do not know, but if the humans are the spark, then the watchers are the smoke. And smoke means fire, something far worse is coming." That night, Dren vanished. His laboratory was found empty, his ships gone, his family missing. Some said he defected to the humans. Others whispered the watchers took him. The truth was never known. The ISS Valiant reached the neutral world of Kirill Station, a hub where traders from across galaxies met. As the humans docked, silence fell. No one dared challenge them. Merchants pulled their ships away. Guards lowered their weapons. The humans walked calmly through the station, buying supplies, speaking politely, yet their presence was heavier than a fleet of dreadnoughts. because everyone knew the Ghost Fleet was waiting outside. Captain Holt left a message with the station commander. A simple note. We are explorers, we seek peace, but the ones who follow us are not negotiators. They do not understand peace, they only understand balance. The commander asked him, trembling. What balance? Holt only said, between silence and fire. When the Valiant departed, the station's sensors caught something impossible. For a moment, 100 ghost ships appeared around the station, then vanished as if they had never been. The people fell to their knees in fear. The humans had not attacked, but still everyone felt as if they had been judged. In the palace, the Emperor stood at his balcony, looking out at the stars. Once we ruled by fear, he said softly, but now fear itself has turned against us. He clenched his fist. This is no longer a war of ships. It is a war of belief, and belief can destroy empires faster than fire. The Galactic Empire, once untouchable, was now breaking apart, and at the center of it all was a single human ship, calmly moving forward with shadows walking behind it, silent, patient, and eternal. The Galactic Empire had lost control of the story. For centuries, their power rested on fear, but now fear belonged to the humans everywhere the ISS Valiant traveled. Whispers followed. Merchants abandoned profitable routes rather than risk crossing paths with the Ghost Fleet. Whole colonies declared neutrality when the humans passed nearby. The Empire tried to crush these whispers, but silence only made them grow louder. The Emperor called his generals once more. This time, there was no shouting, no laughter, no arrogance. All of them sat in silence waiting. Finally, the Emperor asked the question that haunted them all. If the humans do not control these watchers, then who does? No one answered. For the first time in history, the Empire's generals had nothing to say. Meanwhile, the Valiant approached Velran Starbase, a neutral hub where dozens of alien species gathered. It was a place of politics, trade, and fragile truces. When the humans docked, every species watched them with wide eyes, not because of their weapons, of which they had none, but because of the shadows that came with them. Velran's long-range scanners caught flickers of dark shapes forming. In the void, they did not move closer, but they were there, always there. Captain Holt met with the Council of Velran. He stood calmly, hands folded behind his back. We are explorers, he said. We are not here to claim worlds or thrones. But your presence brings war, one counselor hissed. Where? You walk, the Empire trembles. Another leaned forward, voice shaking. Are you summoning them, the Ghost Fleet? Holt shook his head. We do not summon, we are simply followed. The council argued for hours, but Holt only said one more thing. If you fear us, then draw a line. Tell us where not to go, and we will honor it. The council murmured. Confused, but agreed. They drew a map marking a boundary, a border the humans were never to cross. Holt nodded once. Then let it be so. When the Valiant departed, something impossible happened. The line the council had drawn on the map appeared in real space. A thin, glowing seam stretched across the stars like a scar of light. Ships that tried to cross it vanished. Others returned empty, with crews missing. The galaxy gasped. The humans had spoken, and the universe itself had answered. Back in the Empire's throne world, panic spread faster than ever. Reports flooded in of ships disappearing at the glowing line. Merchants demanded protection. Citizens screamed in fear. The Emperor stared at the map, fists clenched. This is witchcraft, he snarled. But the truth was darker. The humans hadn't created the line. The Watchers had. They had listened, and they had made it real. Admirals argued again. Some demanded to cross the line with full fleets. Others begged the Emperor not to test it. One whispered, "It is not a border, it is a grave marker." The Emperor silenced them all. We will wait. The first to move is not us, but them. Across the galaxy, the legend of the line in the stars spread. Some saw it as a shield, others as a curse. To rebels, it was hope. Proof that even the Empire could bleed. To merchants, it was terror. Proof that the galaxy was no longer safe. But to the humans, It was proof of something they didn't understand. On board the Valiant, Rami asked the question that weighed on all their minds. Captain, why did they make the line real? Holt stared into the viewport, watching the seam of light in the distance. Because they heard us, he whispered. They heard what we agreed to, and they obeyed. Obeyed? Rami asked. Or judged? Holt didn't answer, because deep inside he knew the truth. The Watchers weren't protecting humans, they weren't allies, they weren't slaves, they were interpreters. Balancing the galaxy according to rules no one understood. Then one day a small rebel vessel tried to cross the line. It carried refugees fleeing from the Empire, desperate for safety. They begged the humans for help, but the Valiant could not intervene. The ship crossed. For a moment it vanished, then it reappeared on the other side, empty. Every soul aboard was gone. The vessel drifted quietly, lights still on, food untouched, but no voices remained. The message was clear. The line was absolute. The Emperor received the news with a grim smile. Even rebels are judged, he said. But his smile faded when his science chief added, Majesty, it was not rebels who were judged, it was all of us. The humans made no speeches, no demands, they continued moving. Quietly, steadily, the galaxy held its breath. Everyone waited for the day someone would cross the line again, because now it wasn't just about the humans. It was about what the Watchers would do when their patience ended. On the Valiant's bridge. Holt stood in silence. He whispered to himself, words he never dared say to his crew. We are not leaders. We are bait. And behind him, in the dark beyond the stars, the ghost fleet shifted. Not closer, not further. Just waiting, always waiting. The ISS Valiant floated at the edge of the Empire's borders, engines humming softly. Its journey through the heart of the most feared civilization in the galaxy had ended, but it left behind a trail of silence, terror, and whispers. Everywhere it went, the Empire had hesitated. Every time they struck, something older and darker had answered in the humans' place, and now the galaxy itself began to shape a new truth. Do not provoke Earth. The humans themselves were confused. Earth. Command received endless reports, but none had answers. They hadn't built the ghost fleet, hadn't drawn the glowing line, hadn't silenced warships. Yet the legend was spreading like fire. Worlds whispered that humans were chosen, that their shadow was stronger than fleets. Some claimed the Watchers were guardians, others called them executioners, but all agreed, where humans walked, empires bent on Velran starbase, merchants told new stories to frighten their rivals. They say a whole armada fired on the humans once, and now those ships float in the dark with no crew. In a mining colony near the dust rings, children played games where one pretended to be human. The others acted as Empire soldiers. The game always ended the same. The soldiers ran. The humans stood tall. Even myths had changed. The galaxy's nightmares had new faces now. Inside the Emperor's palace, the War Council met again, but no one dared suggest another attack. Instead, they argued about how to live beside the humans without drawing the Watchers' attention. One general suggested signing a treaty. Another whispered about abandoning whole sectors of space. The Emperor's voice cut through the chamber like cold steel. No, we do not yield, we wait. If the humans move again, we watch them. If the shadows stir, we pray they never look at us. Meanwhile, on the Valiant, Rami sat quietly, staring out at the glowing seam of the borderline. Captain, do you think we've cursed the galaxy? He asked. Holt stood beside him, his reflection faint in the glass. I don't think we cursed it, Holt said. I think we revealed it. Revealed what? That the galaxy was never ours, it belongs to something older. We just happened to wake it. The Valiant turned back toward Earth, its mission complete. The crew longed for home, for the safety of blue skies and green fields. But they knew, when they returned, Earth would not be the same. Because now Earth had a reputation it never earned. A reputation written not with blood, but with fear. On distant worlds, rebels raised human banners, claiming protection under the Shadow Fleet. On others, priests declared humans prophets of the Watchers. Even the Empire's soldiers began hesitating in battles far from human space, because every time they looked into the void, they wondered if black ships were waiting there. The legend grew faster than any fleet could travel, and with every passing day, it became harder to tell truth from fear. Had humans really silenced an Imperial cruiser? Did the Watchers erase whole stations? Or were these only stories told in the dark, growing larger with every whisper? It didn't matter, because in the galaxy, belief was more powerful than facts. And now belief said this: never challenge humanity. One night, Holt recorded his final log entry for Earth Command. His voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed the weight of what he had seen. We never fired a shot. We never declared war. But the galaxy has placed a crown on our heads we didn't ask for. They don't see us as explorers anymore. They see us as the edge of something bigger. I don't know if that's a gift or a curse, but it will follow us for centuries. When the Valiant arrived back at Earth, the crew was celebrated like heroes. Crowds filled the spaceport, waving flags, cheering their names. But Holt stood apart from the celebrations. He knew the truth. The humans were not feared for their strength. They were feared for their shadow, and shadows cannot be commanded across the galaxy. The Empire quietly redrew its maps. The line of light was left untouched. Entire sectors were marked as restricted, simply because the humans had passed near them. Other powers followed, giving humans a wide circle of space. Even pirates avoided earthbound ships. It was safer to rob empires than to anger what followed humanity. In the dark, far from any star, the ghost fleet lingered. Silent, patient, eternal. They did not move toward Earth, but they did not vanish either. They simply waited, as if watching, as if protecting, as if judging. No one knew their purpose, not even the humans. But everyone feared their silence. And so, a legend was born, that humans had walked into the heart of the greatest empire, and left without bowing, without bleeding. Not because of their strength, but because the galaxy feared what followed them. And the first words of this legend spread across 1,000 worlds. Never challenge the humans, for they are never truly alone.